For a long time, I lived next to a stranger, thinking that she was a part of me. And then she did something I will never forget. And I made sure that she never lived a normal life again. But it didn't happen overnight. First, I needed a plan. In the end, you will find out what I came up with for her. I don't know what triggered me more. The fact that the red paint didn't match anything we owned, or the fact that she wore white that day. Amber never wore white when she met clients. She claimed it made her look washed out. So when I saw her walk through the door that Thursday evening, blouse buttoned all the way up but speckled dead center with a rich, bloody smear of crimson, something in my gut stiffened like a rope pulled taut. I asked about it casually, the way a husband is supposed to ask, leaning against the kitchen counter, watching her unpack her purse like nothing mattered. She barely looked up. "Designer meeting," she said, "mock-ups for the gallery walls." That was a good lie. Clean, quick, believable. But it was also unnecessary. There hadn't been any renovations since February, and the gallery walls. We'd settled on raw brick last fall. The planning was over, so I nodded, like I always did when I didn't want to start something. I smiled, kissed her on the cheek, and folded the moment away into a growing collection of mental files I'd been curating over the past few weeks. Little inconsistencies, a missed call, a lingering glance at her phone, too much perfume at breakfast. But it was the red paint that broke something. Later that night, while she slept, I crept down to the laundry room. Her shirt was balled up in the basket, blotched turned rusty but still bold against the cotton. I clipped the stain into a plastic sample bag and took a Q-tip to what was left, sealing it like some kind of suburban forensic tech. I didn't know what I was doing, only that I had to do something. By Tuesday, I had the results. Oil-based, mixed with titanium white and cadmium red. Used almost exclusively in private art studios, not for interior walls, not for commercial galleries. The report even listed common uses: life drawing sessions, oil figure studies, the kind of material that clings to canvas and skin. I didn't bring it up. I didn't accuse her. Instead, I started watching. Amber had always been predictable, structured to a fault. Yoga on Sundays, meetings on Mondays, artist visits on Thursdays. But suddenly there were new meetings, unnamed exhibitions, spontaneous brunches with Elise, who I knew had moved to Toronto 6 months ago. I started leaving the office early. I told my staff I had migraines. I didn't. I spent my afternoons trailing her, circling neighborhoods like a man waiting to get hit by lightning. And then I saw it. It was an abandoned depot, old train station on the south edge of the city, long boarded up, rust peeling from its bones. I saw her car first, a beat-up gray Lexus that stuck out like a wine glass in a scrapyard. Her scarf was dangling out the window like a forgotten flag. I parked 3 blocks away and walked, slow and steady, my pulse pounding with a sick cocktail of dread and certainty. Inside the depot, it smelled like turpentine and dust. Shafts of late afternoon sun broke through the rotting planks, spotlighting the grime like a stage. I heard music echoing, soft, instrumental, foreign. And then I heard her laugh. The sound made my stomach turn. She was barefoot on a paint-stained tarp, her skin glowing in the dim light, body completely exposed. She was posing, hip cocked, chin lifted, staring at the man in front of her. He stood at an easel, brush moving like a lover's hand, eyes locked on her curves with a focus that was too practiced to be professional. I took out my phone and snapped the photo with trembling fingers. I didn't linger. I didn't storm in. I backed out the way I came, heart hammering in my ears. That night at home, she walked in humming. She smelled like eucalyptus oil and linseed. She set down her bag and went straight to the fridge, pulling out wine. She poured 2 glasses and handed me one, her smile soft like nothing in the world had changed. I held up the photo. I didn't show it, just the phone screen turned to black. Just enough to suggest I knew something. "Charity auction," she said, with a grin that wavered just slightly. "It's for a good cause. The piece won't even have my name on it." I just nodded, took a sip of the wine she poured, and said, "Uh-huh." I knew better than to push too fast. This wasn't just about cheating. This was a performance, and she didn't realize I just bought a front row seat. And now, I wanted more than answers. I wanted to orchestrate the silence before the collapse. By the time Saturday rolled around, I wasn't sleeping anymore. I didn't dream, didn't eat right, didn't speak unless I had to. But I was creating something far bigger than an argument or a confrontation. Amber wasn't just going to be exposed. She was going to be unveiled, as deliberately as one of her precious gallery pieces, her shame suspended in a spotlight for everyone she once fooled. I started with the ID. It was easier than I expected. The art world, pretentious as it was, thrived on anonymity masked as mystique. All I needed was a name, a backstory, and a passable headshot. I called myself Dr. Peter Langford, a British-American dual citizen with a doctorate in contemporary European expressionism. I made up institutions, cited fake exhibitions in Barcelona, critical essays in obscure journals. The photo I used was a professional shot from my university days, taken before the beard came in and the life bled out. I created a website for Langford Reviews, complete with mock critiques of up-and-coming abstract realists. The writing was easy. I'd read enough of Amber's journals over the years to parrot that highbrow nonsense. Brushstroke theory, color aggression, temporal fluidity. I used all of it. Next came the gallery space. Midtown Manhattan, a neglected showroom listed for rent by a real estate agency that didn't care what I used it for as long as the check cleared. I signed the lease under a shell corporation, Langford Arts Initiative, registered in Delaware, and filled out the insurance paperwork with a proxy account. I paid everything in advance. No reason to delay. Then I started collecting. Through a private art buyer, a woman named Livia, who didn't ask too many questions, I secured 3 paintings by the very artist who'd had Amber standing bare in that depot. I knew the style from the photo: brutal strokes, deep shadows, fractured lines crossing soft bodies like slashes. But there was one piece Livia said had never been shown publicly. A gift, she called it, one he painted as a personal tribute. She sent me a preview in low res. Amber, unmistakable, her face turned to the side, lips parted. Nude again. But this time she wasn't posing. This time she was pleading, or maybe caught, her expression frozen in raw panic, as if the canvas itself had ambushed her. I bought that one first. I wired triple the asking price. The next step was subtle but important, laying the bait without setting off alarms. I crafted an invitation list using names pulled from Amber's phone. Gallery contacts, Arts Foundation donors, old professors from her MFA program. I even invited a few press outlets, minor ones, the kind that jump at a buzzworthy scandal. But the real show started that evening with shrimp curry. Amber hated shrimp curry, despised the smell of it, couldn't even sit near a restaurant that served it. So I cooked it, carefully, delicately, with cilantro and turmeric and roasted garlic. I served it with wine and rice and invited her parents over for dinner. She smiled through her teeth the whole time, her nose twitching like a dog in a thunderstorm. I didn't ask her to explain. I was too busy playing the part of doting husband, telling stories about our shared dream of curating spaces that challenge modern norms. Her mother fawned over the decor, her father refilled his glass 3 times, and then I brought out the surprise. It was a poster, tall, glossy, and mounted on foam board. In bold black letters, "The Female Form Unframed, A New Vision, Opening Night," hosted by Dr. Peter Langford, featuring works by Raoul Escher, including his never-before-seen unnamed number 37 Manhattan. Friday, 6 p.m. I watched her read it, watched her eyes catch the title, watched her fingers freeze on the wine stem. "Where'd you find this?" she asked. I just smiled. "A client," I lied. "He said it's the next big thing. I thought it'd be fun to go. You still like galleries, right?" She gave that fake little chuckle she always used when she didn't know what to say. Her parents nodded approvingly. "You two always were so cultured," her mother beamed. Amber just sipped her wine and didn't respond. I could see the wheels spinning behind her eyes, doing the math, weighing the odds. Had he seen it? Does he know? Is this a coincidence? Or is the noose tightening? That night she tried to initiate. She curled up next to me, tracing slow lines down my chest, her breath warm against my skin. But I didn't respond. I didn't move. After a moment, she gave up and went to bed quietly. I stayed downstairs and stared at the poster, the words I'd written, the image I'd chosen to sit just beneath the title, a sliver of unnamed number 37, cropped at the waistline, just ambiguous enough to avoid suspicion, just bold enough to stir her fear. The next morning, she made coffee before I woke. She kissed me goodbye with too much force, told me she'd be running errands. I knew exactly where she was going. The best part? There were only 5 days left until the exhibition, and the city wasn't ready, but she was, and I couldn't wait to watch her unravel. By Tuesday morning, the weather app said storms were moving across the Midwest, but none of that mattered to me. I booked the flight anyway. I didn't care about rain or turbulence. I wasn't flying to relax. I was flying to find someone Amber thought had disappeared into her rearview mirror years ago. Her ex, a name she never brought up, a face she never let slip. But I remembered it. I'd memorized every detail the one time I found a half-burned birthday card from him in the bottom of her nightstand drawer, folded and tucked beneath a scarf she never wore. A signature in smudged ink. To my wild one. M. I landed in Los Angeles and drove a rental out to the edge of Van Nuys, where the buildings started to fade into garages and trailers, where the concrete wore sun damage like bruises. I followed the address I'd tracked through public filings and parking citations. He lived off a cul-de-sac, tucked behind a tire shop, in a half-rusted Airstream that had no business surviving the California heat. His name was Mark, and he looked like life had wrung him out and left him to dry on a fence post. Graying at the temples, sunburned around the edges, and still wearing the kind of sunglasses that scream wannabe. He didn't recognize me. No reason he would. But when I said Amber's name, his whole face changed. Not guilty, not nostalgic, just exhausted. We drank whiskey from a chipped glass, something bottom shelf that smelled like paint thinner. I didn't care. "She still married?" he asked and laughed before I could answer. "Yeah, she always wanted the damn ring more than the man." I didn't have to ask much. He pulled out a box from under the table like he'd been waiting for someone to ask. It was filled with letters, real, handwritten pages, yellowed at the folds, postmarks from 6 years ago, dates that lined up suspiciously with the early years of my marriage. Each one signed with her name, always ending in phrases like, "Please help me just this once," or "I'll pay you back as soon as I can." Most had notes about emergency procedures, vague medical appointments, one even referenced a fertility clinic visit, but none of them made sense. Not for someone who supposedly lived a quiet, drama-free life by my side. Then came the real gut punch. A letter written 2 years after our wedding. She'd asked him for $2,000 to cover what she called a necessary out-of-town surgery and hinted she couldn't tell her husband. She signed it with "Forever yours" like some soap opera extra. My hands were shaking by the time I folded it up. "I thought she might be dying," Mark admitted, eyes glazed. "So I wired it." "Idiot, huh?" "No," I muttered. "You're not the only one." I pulled out my wallet and handed him $500 in cash, crisp bills plus another $200 for a favor. He looked at me sideways when I made the request. "I want you to call her," I said. "Now. On speaker." He hesitated, then pulled out his phone. He scrolled until he found the contact, then hit dial. The ring only lasted twice. Her voice came through clean and sweet, like she always used when she was hiding something. "Mark, I didn't expect—" "No words. Just come." Click. No hesitation, no pause to explain, no curiosity, no concern, not even a question, just an order dressed in longing. My skin crawled. I hit record the second she answered, and now her voice sat locked in a file I could play anytime I needed to remember who I was dealing with. "Still got that kind of pull," Mark muttered, half proud, half disgusted. He didn't ask me what I planned to do with it. He knew better than to want the answer. I flew home that night, and the whole time I watched the clouds from my window seat, I kept replaying the call in my head. Her tone, her silence before the request, the way she sounded like she was speaking to someone she expected to follow her blindly, like a dog she hadn't fed in months but still expected to heal. When I walked back into our house, she was curled up on the couch, barefoot, sketching into a notebook She didn't know I'd already flipped through dozens of times while she was gone. It was full of lines, silhouettes, half-finished nudes, but none of them were me. She looked up and smiled. Long day, I shrugged. The longest. She patted the space next to her and went back to her drawing like nothing in the world had shifted, like she still had time, but I didn't sit. I went upstairs, turned on the shower, and locked the door behind me. And while the water beat down, I stared at the letters, at her handwriting, at the sweet little lies she'd whispered in ink to a man she once called a mistake. I stared at them until the paper blurred, and then I smiled, because this was no longer about catching her. This was about building the kind of trap no apology could unhinge, and now I had her voice saying it all. The morning after I returned from Los Angeles, I didn't speak to Amber. Not even a passing hello. She moved around the house like a ghost in heels, glancing my way with that nervous half-smile she wore when she suspected something but wasn't ready to face it. I wasn't ready to talk either. Not yet. There was one more thing I needed to uncover, one last layer she'd buried beneath lock and password. Amber worked from an office she rented downtown. It looked modest enough from the outside, somewhere between a startup and a bohemian's hideaway. She called it her idea bunker, but I knew better. You don't spend 7 hours a day surrounded by abstract oil paintings, potted succulents, and expensive mood lighting unless you're hiding something. I waited until Wednesday night. She told me she was staying out late to scout materials. The same lie she'd told the week before, and the week before that. She still hadn't noticed her location tracking was active. I watched her drive to the far end of the city, nowhere near a hardware or material store, and then I waited 10 minutes before heading to her office myself. The lock was easy. I'd watched her type the code a dozen times. 1-9-8-7. Birth year. Predictable. Inside, the air smelled like perfume, ink, and sweat. Her laptop sat closed on the desk. Filing cabinet unlocked. Art supplies tucked into neatly labeled drawers. I didn't care about any of that. What I wanted was in the safe. She didn't know I'd seen her open it once, months ago, when she thought I was in the shower. Hidden behind a canvas on the wall, a panel slid back to reveal the keypad. 0-4-2-2. Our wedding date. Of course, the safe opened with a sigh. Inside were paper stacks, thumb drives, 2 external hard drives, and a few legal documents. Contracts, licensing agreements, tax filings, and a burner phone. I left that for last. First, I focused on the paperwork. Among the files, I found something I hadn't expected. Crypto trading contracts. Pages and pages of them. Some listed her name, but others, they listed mine. My name, my social security number, my business registration ID, all details she had access to. She'd opened trading accounts using my identity, masked through privacy wallets and exchange proxies. Some of those accounts showed transactions in the tens of thousands. I took photos of everything. I slid one of the hard drives into my coat pocket and copied the contracts to a USB I'd brought just in case. When I opened the trading dashboard on her burner phone, I saw it. Her primary wallet, linked to 3 exchanges, bleeding losses. She was in deep, real deep. She had debt, hidden debt, and she was trying to dig herself out using me. When I left, I didn't touch a thing out of place. The safe clicked shut. The panel slid back into position. And by the time she got home, I was on the couch with a glass of bourbon, laptop open, pretending to read an old research brief. She dropped her bag at the door, too upbeat for midnight. "Didn't think you'd still be up," she said. "I couldn't sleep." She kissed the top of my head. "I missed you today." I didn't look up. "Did you?" That gave her pause, just long enough for doubt to bloom. I didn't say anything else. I waited until morning. When she walked into the kitchen, the coffee machine already humming, I slid a folder across the island. Black, unmarked, clipped tight. "What's this?" "Your move," I said. She hesitated before opening it. Inside were printed copies of the contracts, screenshots of the trading accounts, highlighted withdrawals, and a typed page with the phrase "identity fraud" bolded at the top. At the bottom of the page was the number to the attorney I'd already consulted with. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She sat down, trembling, and flipped through the pages like they might change the longer she stared at them. But they didn't. and I didn't offer a single word more. The only sound was the soft grind of coffee beans and the paper rustling under her fingertips. I stood. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice cracking. "Out," I said. "Nowhere you'd follow." I left her there, barefoot in silk pajamas, surrounded by evidence of a woman she hadn't told me she'd become. Not just unfaithful, not just dishonest, a liar, a thief. And now the game wasn't about art or affairs anymore. By Friday, Amber had filed for divorce. No preamble, no conversation. She came home with a silent look, dropped the paperwork on the counter like a passive-aggressive love letter, and walked past me like she'd just finished a job interview. I didn't speak. I didn't even blink. Because while she thought she was setting the terms, she had no idea I'd already met with her lawyer that morning and turned him into a double agent. His name was Brent Maddox, sleek, with gold cufflinks and a permanent whiff of cologne that reminded me of overpriced whiskey and buried secrets. I'd found his name printed in the corner of the preliminary paperwork Amber had left in the folder, so I dug. It didn't take long to find what I needed. Amber had a pattern. She always left loose threads. She let names slip, forgot to clear her emails, or repeated stories too often. A week earlier, I'd overheard her on the phone talking about a favor from an old friend. The name Brent popped up, just once, but I remembered it. Public records filled in the gaps. Brent Maddox had once been cited in a professional misconduct review for a client conflict of interest that had been quietly dismissed. That was 10 years ago, back when he was still cutting his teeth and apparently sleeping with a client. The name of that client? Amber Thomas. My Amber. I scheduled a consultation under my real name, told his receptionist I wanted an aggressive litigator, and arrived early with one thing in mind: leverage. He didn't recognize me at first, not until I mentioned Amber's name in passing and saw the flicker in his eyes. I leaned in, set a flash drive on the table, and said, "Before you say anything, you'll want to listen to this." The audio was only 15 seconds long. Amber's voice. "Brent still owes me. He won't go too hard on me in court. Trust me." Brent didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then he asked what I wanted. "I want you to stay on the case," I said calmly, "as her lawyer. I want her to think you're still hers. But everything she gives you, copies, drafts, emails, I want first. And when the trial starts, I want to watch her face when you let it all collapse under her feet." He agreed, just like that. Some men fold for money, others for fear. Brent did it for both. By Monday, we were in pre-trial hearings. Amber wore gray, conservative, strategic, a deliberate attempt to look humble, wounded, put together. But her hands gave her away, fidgeting, wringing, twitching against the fabric of her dress. I could almost see the spin she'd rehearsed in the mirror. She wanted the court to believe she was an artist, a wife betrayed by a bitter, vengeful man. A woman trapped in a cold marriage, driven to independence, victim of circumstance. And for a moment, I almost believed she was about to pull it off, until her lawyer, Brent, stood and asked the judge to admit a new exhibit. I already knew what it was. I'd planted it. It was the copyright transfer to my book. Not a published book, not even a finished one. Just a manuscript I'd worked on for years, slowly, privately, never meant for public consumption. It had been saved on my hard drive under a nondescript name, but somehow she'd registered the rights under her name, and worse, she'd sold them to a publishing house she used to intern for. The judge stared at her. Amber's lips parted, but no sound came out. Brent stood in total silence beside her, like a man watching his own boat catch fire while pretending it wasn't his. The courtroom shifted. Whispered murmurs spread like smoke. Amber looked at me, not in defiance, not in hate, but in panic. The kind of look that says, "You weren't supposed to be smart enough to find this." She fled the building before the hearing ended, shoes in hand, hair wild. I didn't follow. 2 days later, the fallout hit. Her accounts were frozen, not by me, but by the financial fraud division that had flagged suspicious activity linked to the crypto accounts she set up under my name. I'd filed the report, quietly, efficiently. The investigation wasn't public yet, but her sponsors didn't wait for it to be. They pulled out within 24 hours. One by one, her partnerships dried up. Art residencies, speaking events, product collaborations, gone. Her name, once associated with a rising new wave of raw feminist realism, was now tied to theft, manipulation, and copyright violation. She tried to call me. I didn't answer. She emailed. I forwarded it to my attorney. On Friday, the judge granted me a temporary financial injunction. Everything she touched was now under review. The house, still mine. The gallery lease she used my credit to secure, voided. The trademarks under her brand, contested. It wasn't revenge, not yet. This was just the excavation of truth, the slow, deliberate peeling back of every lie she layered over our marriage. And she still had no idea the worst part was coming, that this wasn't the end, only the intermission. It started with a blank billboard, steel frame, LED face, towering over Brooklyn. I leased it for a month under a proxy media firm. No names, no questions. One request, launch at 8 a.m. Friday, right in time for rush hour. The design, just a black screen with a pulsing white QR code. No image, no tagline, just intrigue. People can't ignore what they don't understand. The code led to a site I built from scratch, amberexposed.net. A single scroll page, no navigation, every element calculated. At the top, a still frame of Amber, nude, mid-pose in the depot. Her body caught mid-turn, blurred at the edges. Beneath it, one line. This image was never meant to be public. Neither were the lies she lived. Then, unnamed number 37, the painting of her face in panic, twisted in pain, painted by the man she thought loved her. That painting alone told more truth than 1,000 of her gallery bios. Scroll again. Screenshots. Her crypto wallets, trading logs, identity theft, withdrawal dates, under my name. Next, the letters to her ex, begging for money. Emergency procedure. Just this once. I swear I'll make it right. Then came the audio clip. Mark. Hello? Amber. Mark? No words, just come. And finally, the clincher, a scanned receipt for a fake pregnancy test, crumpled and marked, emergency justification. If needed, she had planned to lie to someone, me, him, maybe both, about carrying a child. The last line of the site read, nothing abstract about betrayal. It launched at 8:03 a.m. The site crashed by 8:06. Traffic swarmed the page. Over 1 million hits in 6 hours. And from the corner cafe across from the billboard, I watched New York look up and start scanning. By noon, her name trended online. Sponsors dropped her. Her gallery removed every listing. Her podcast appearances vanished. Google Ads blacklisted her. Amber didn't come home, but she logged on. My trackers showed her clicking every photo. She listened to the audio 3 times. The painting held her for 5 full minutes. That night, she sent an email. No subject line. You ruined everything, but I still love you. I forwarded it to the press. The blogs ran with it fast. Fallen artist begs husband for forgiveness after going viral. That same evening, I sat down for a podcast called Reckoning. The host called me the silent architect of poetic justice. I just told the truth. No rage, just method. When he asked why I went public, I said, she always wanted attention. I gave it to her. But the real finale was the gallery, opened under my pseudonym, Dr. Peter Langford. Invitations sent to critics, journalists, and her old mentors. Nowhere in the promo did I mention her name. In the final room, quiet, closed off from the others, hung a single piece. It wasn't a painting. It was a still frame from court. Amber's face frozen mid-verdict, mouth open, eyes wide. The exact moment the copyright theft was revealed. I'd had it enlarged, printed on canvas, lit from below. When the crowd saw it, silence fell. Then someone clapped. Others followed, a standing ovation, for a picture of the truth. I stood in the back and watched, unnoticed. Later that night, I drove to Washington. New house, clean space. My kids were already playing in the yard when I pulled up, laughing under a pale blue sky. I got out, barefoot on the lawn, frisbee in hand. Amber's name was gone from every headline by then, But Amber Exposed still had 2.3 million subscribers. A month passed. Amber resurfaced like wreckage after a storm, scratched, desperate, still clinging to the illusion that something could be salvaged. The headlines had quieted, the public moved on, but she hadn't. Not really. She sent messages every few days, always different in tone. One morning it was, "I want to heal with you." That night it was, "You destroyed me." The next day, "Please just talk to me." She still didn't understand. She thought this was about humiliation, about getting even. But it never was. This was about the truth having nowhere left to hide. That was the only thing I ever wanted. Her mask off, fully, publicly, permanently. Then came the final message. It wasn't angry. It wasn't pleading. It was worse. "I miss the way you smelled when you came in from the rain. I miss the way your voice dropped when you read out loud. You ruined everything, but I still love you." This time I didn't forward it to the blogs. I sent it to the producers of Reckoning. They ran it as a closer on their next episode, played it against the backdrop of a violin cover of The Sound of Silence, like some eulogy for the life she'd obliterated. The host, too polished to gloat, simply said, "Sometimes the echoes we chase are the same ones we killed." That night my gallery reopened, this time in Washington. Smaller, more intimate. No crowds, no fanfare. Just locals, friends, and a few quiet onlookers, curious about the artist who exposed his wife and walked away without a word. At the back of the gallery I installed a new piece, unannounced, unframed, a mirror, plain, silver-edged, hung at eye level. Beneath it, a small plaque read, "This is what she never saw." The guests stood before it longer than they had for anything else. Some cried, some just stared at their own reflection. And as they turned to leave, they glanced back once, like the mirror might change. Later that week, Amber's lawyer tried to contact me. Not Brent, he was long gone, but someone new, someone she'd scraped together for the appeal. Apparently, she wanted to reopen the settlement, claimed she was misrepresented, that she'd been emotionally coerced. She never understood how many choices she made with both hands. I didn't respond. The court rejected the motion before I even had to show up. But what she didn't know was that I still had one last piece in reserve, a painting she'd started in our attic 3 years ago. It was supposed to be about rebirth, she told me, a phoenix, but halfway through she stopped. It sat in our storage unit, unfinished, just a smear of flames and feathers suspended in chaos. I mailed it to her. No note, no return address, just the canvas. Just the reminder that she never knew how to finish anything without setting fire to the things around her. Weeks went by. No response. Then a late afternoon in April, a journalist reached out. Said Amber had agreed to an exclusive interview for a new documentary. Said she wanted to tell her side. I sent one reply. "Make sure you get a close-up of the moment she realizes no one cares anymore." The film never aired. She withdrew at the last minute. Claimed emotional trauma. I didn't follow up. Instead, I took my kids to the park. The sky was clean and blue. My daughter climbed the jungle gym. My son asked to race me across the grass. I let him win. He laughed like he was the fastest person alive. And as I sat on that bench, sweat on my neck, the world finally quiet, I realized something. She had wrecked the ship, yes, but I had walked away with the map, the compass, and the wind. She wasn't even part of the story anymore. Just the warning carved into the mast. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.